All right. Thanks,
All
Kevin,
right, our
for
presenter
filling my
today
dead
is
time.
Greg Bray, principal at Blue Tangerine. Greg, thank you for our session today.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. And thanks, everybody. And I'm excited to be able to share a few thoughts today to talk more about this. Just for those who aren't familiar with Blue Tangerine, our goal is to help you build a better website, drive more traffic, and to convert more leads. So please keep us in mind if you need some help for that. But today we're going to talk a lot about selling homes. But before we do that, I just want to take a minute and tell you guys a little story. So this is in the fall of 2000. I had the opportunity to be invited to a dinner that was being hosted by a client. They invited myself. I was able to bring my wife. So several of my coworkers and their spouses were able to come, including some members of our company leadership team at the time. And they were celebrating, and this company had gotten together to celebrate. It was in a hotel ballroom, big dinner, had a nice dessert, and then around 8 p.m. sharp, just as we were finishing dessert and clearing away, they had what they called the big reveal. And what was all the excitement about? What had they gotten everybody together to do? They were announcing their new website. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to show off the new website. And this was Oriole Homes, and this was their homepage at that time. And then you click on that, click to enter, and it would open up. And they went for the photo album theme, as you can see. For those of you who don't remember photo albums, this was before everything was just on your phone, and you had to put your pictures somewhere, and they had these little tabs you could put the pictures in. Yeah, those, you might see one in a museum somewhere, or maybe at your grandma's house. I don't know, but photo albums. And they were so excited about having a new website that they had this big party to launch it. And we were all kind of nervous because we had to make it go live like right on the dot at 8 o'clock, and they didn't want anybody to see it before. It was kind of stressful. So we're like at our table, just make sure it works, because hotel ballrooms are still not known for their great internet connections. And back then it was even less so. But this was the first home builder website that I worked on. And again, went live in the fall of the year 2000. So I thought if I could take just a minute of your time as well and walk through just a little bit of history. If I could challenge everybody, if you were alive in 1990, drop it in the chat. Say, yes, I was there. And even more important, were you old enough in 1990 to actually remember that year? Okay. All right. So what happened in 1990? Why do we care so much about that? In 1990, there was this guy named Tim Berners-Lee who worked in the CERN research facility in Switzerland, who was really frustrated that the scientists could not easily share information. They could not easily share information. And so he came up with this way that they could link their documents together and that they could see each other's documents. And he created something called hypertext transfer protocol, which you guys have all said over and over and over again, right? And we call it today, it's the HTTP that you see all over the internet. And he also created something called hypertext markup language. So the protocol is how the servers and the documents talk to each other, and the markup language is how you actually code the documents to make it work. And all this happened in 1990, and we call it HTML, of course. And you guys have probably all heard of HTML. This is the birth, we say, of the World Wide Web. The internet was before, underneath all of that. But this is when the web really came to life. But it wasn't for another 3 years until the Mosaic web browser was released. And this was the first graphical web browser that became available. Before that, it was all kind of a text-based, where you were just tabbing and using the keyboard to get around. So 93, then in 94, we start to accelerate. Yahoo.com decides they want to create a directory of every website that's on the internet so you can find it. And Netscape Navigator becomes a commercial browser, whereas Mosaic was more something coming from the universities. All right, then we get into 95. 95, Amazon.com goes live with 1 million books, the world's largest bookstore. And a site called auctionweb.com also went live. And you're all like, who's AuctionWeb? What's that? Well, in the next couple of years, AuctionWeb did over 1 million transactions. And in 1997, they renamed it to eBay. So you've probably heard of eBay. Also in 97, this is when Google goes live. And if you can see there on the Google homepage, index contains about 25 million pages, in parentheses, soon to be much bigger. Now, the last number I could find that was published was in 2016, where Google said there's now over 130 trillion pages in their index, and they've stopped kind of counting, I guess, at this point, or at least publishing that since 2016. So back then, 25 million pages, 130 trillion and counting today. So this is just some of the background of where we were. This is the beginning of the e-commerce era, if you will, is this mid to late 90s. Amazon, Google, Yahoo, you were there. Where were builders at this time? And you guys might get a kick out of this, all right? June 98, drhorton.com. I'm not quite sure what to say about some of these, right? We look at these and it's like, wow, how things have changed, right? January 99, Pulte. And I love at the bottom, it says, click here to learn more about the leading edge technology behind this state-of-the-art website. And yeah, I can only imagine what kind of interesting information all the home buyers wanted to know about how your website was built. And then May of 2000, we've got Lennar.com. And, you know, they're excited because they've added sound and video to their site, but, you know, you've got to download Macromedia Flash, for those of you who remember that, in order to view this. And you had the Flash and the non-Flash version. All right, so how far these big builders have come today. A little more history, just for a little more context. All right, starting to connect this back to the home builder world, right? In 2000, we've got a consortium of 32 large builders that create Builder Homesite Inc. with this recognition that they need to help the industry embrace the internet and try to understand how to use it more effectively. In 2001, our friends Outhouse actually created the first interactive floor plan tool. That's how long interactive floor plans have been around. These are not brand new. 2001. 2004, the Facebook goes live. The was dropped, I believe, in 2005, if I recall correctly. But 2005, we also see the beginning of YouTube and video becoming a huge player online. Just from an interesting standpoint, for those of you who know Mike Lyon, 2006 is when Mike first published the first edition of Browsers to Buyers. And why did this make it onto my timeline list? Give Mike a little bit of credit here. The concept of online sales counselors, really, it had started prior to this, but Mike is really the one that started to say, hey, industry, online leads are real people and you need to take them seriously. And it was really his efforts around putting this book together that really helped the industry of a whole start to understand the impact of taking these leads that come in from your website and doing something with them. 2007, we've got the first iPhone. And now the internet's in your pocket and you can take it around with you wherever you go. And builders, of course, in 2006 and early 2007, things are booming, right? We've got sign up forms to get on waiting lists and registrations and lines for new communities. And we can't keep up with what's going on because of all the easy money that's flowing through with some of the mortgage practices and things that are going there. Unfortunately, late 2007 into 2009, we have what we call the Great Recession that happens. How many of you remember the Great Recession? Okay, two hands up if you remember the Great Recession and the impact that had on your business, because home building came to a screeching halt for a little while there. I mean, we went down to the bare minimum. And often that's looked at as a challenging and difficult time for this industry. And it definitely was. But there's some things that came out of that from an online understanding that I think were really positive, right? This is where newspaper advertising kind of dried up and disappeared as one of your key marketing activities. As we come out of the Great Recession and start into the recovery period, online opportunities now become the focus for most builders, where they recognize that the internet is where people are shopping. It continues to grow, and then we get an interesting development in 2017. In the fall of 2017, Way Journey Homes, for those of you who may not be aware, goes to a completely online sales model. No sales centers, no people that you can go and meet with. You can still tour a home, but they go to a completely online sales model. And the question is, how well are they going to do with that? They do well enough that they get acquired by Century Communities. And as part of that, we see in 2019, Way Journey Homes sells over 2,800 homes that year with their online sales model. And then finally, just to kind of end our history, we're getting kind of current here. We have 2020, the year that a lot of us would like to do over again, or not do over the way it happened, but do it different and start a whole different way of looking at what happens online. But in 2020, because of the pandemic, we see an incredible acceleration of use of online tools, both by the customers and by builders across the board. So why did I spend this time on history, trying to kind of put this in context? What I really want us to understand is how the fact that, are we ready? Is it time? Can you really sell homes online? Where does that fit in this context of how quickly things have changed over the last, 1990 wasn't that long ago, and the web wasn't even here. And the idea that we've really only had since 2007 with mobile devices and the iPhone that could really access the internet, we've really, these tools are continuing to accelerate. And so now is the time. So the question is, can you really sell homes online? How does that work? And I would argue that one of the biggest pushbacks I get when I talk to people about this topic is, well, people want to see it. Homes are different. People want to see it. They're not, it's a huge purchase. And I completely agree, it's a huge purchase. It's something that takes a lot of effort and a lot of research and time and everything else, but can you sell it online? And so my question is, can you sell this? Dirt. You guys have been selling dirt since the beginning of home construction, right? You've been selling vision. You've been selling a future that people cannot see today for ages. That's what we do when we sell new home communities that haven't been built yet. Yes, inventory homes, a little bit different, but quite often this is what we're selling, this something that's going to be there in the future. And if you can sell dirt to people and tell them it's going to be a beautiful home and all the things that you do, then yes, you can sell homes online with all the tools that we have available to do that. Will people buy a home that they haven't had a chance to visit or see? Well, interestingly enough, there's a study that Redfin has been doing for the last few years, asking simply about buyers making offers sight unseen. And in their January 14th, 2021, so that's just a few months ago, they released the latest, and 63% of 2020 home buyers made an offer sight unseen. Now, this is not just new homes. And of course, the reaction, well, maybe that's just in certain markets. According to their study, they've got data from 1,900 home buyers across 32 major markets. So people are comfortable buying homes without having to visit them. Now, is that everybody? No, it's not 100%. Okay. And of course, are there nuances and differences between new homes and resale homes? Maybe. Okay, but there is a portion of the market that is very comfortable with the idea of buying a home that they have not been able to visit and that they have not seen in person. So as we then consider, what does it really mean to buy online? As I talk to folks about, I get varied reactions. Yes, absolutely, we can do that. Yes, it's time. We're trying to. And then others, it'll never happen. Nobody would ever buy a home online. And I see in my conversations the whole gamut of that. And I think one of the reasons that we have that difference of opinion is that term buying online means something different to each of us. And so in order to truly dig deeper a little bit into that conversation, I think we need to understand what we mean by buy online and the fact that it can mean something different to different people. So what does it really mean to buy online? It could be a lot reservation. It could be the whole process of, after selecting a lot, picking my model, which elevation I want, and getting into structural options. It could get into all the way through all the fits and finishes of interior options and all the things that need to go inside the home. We can talk about whether we're dealing with financing, with mortgage applications or pre-qualifications. We can talk about whether that means we're actually doing the sales contract on the computer at home online. And it can be part of the whole construction process and the warranty process. What buying online means to you can be different than it means to the other builder down the street or to somebody else on a different kind of website. You get to define that of what makes sense for you, your company, and your process. But when we talk about buying online, all of these things come together when we're doing some part of that transaction on the website. So the idea being that I have an opportunity to go home or be at home, get on the website and do some piece or part of this transaction that helps me move forward in the buying process on my own in a way that I used to have to sit in the sales office to do. So then on the flip side of that conversation, what is buying online not, or doesn't have to be? Boy, I'm not sure my grammar worked on that. Buying online is not always what? It doesn't mean that it has to be an unassisted, completely self-service purchase. Sometimes, oh, well, no one will ever be able to do it all without asking questions. That's fine. They can ask questions. They can get assistance. It doesn't mean it has to be completely unassisted for them to buy online. It also doesn't mean that it has to be sight unseen. We talked about some level of customers being comfortable with not having visited, but it's perfectly acceptable for them to still go visit a community, tour a model, tour more than one model, look at the home, and then go back home and make their final decision. All right, so it doesn't mean that they have to go through this entire process without ever visiting or coming to the model or community. It does not mean that it has to be a quick and impulsive purchase. Okay, buying online is not, oh, I saw this home and I'm buying it today and we're moving in tomorrow. You know, it can still have all the research and all the different touch points and all the journey elements that exist and have existed in the buyer journey for forever. So it does not have to be quick or impulsive. It also definitely does not mean that the first time they visit your website, they're clicking the buy now button and purchasing the home. That is not what buying online needs to mean. And so we have to make sure that as we think about incorporating buy online into our process, that we're not ignoring all these other parts of that research and that journey that the website still needs to support the way it does today. Buying online does not mean that every single customer you have must be forced to buy online. Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me that you would force everyone down a path that they're not comfortable with. You need to be able to support your buyers where they are and meet them where they want to be met. Now, granted, there is a portion that want that. And if you have that buying online option available, you're going to appeal to them in a way that your competitor may not. But it doesn't mean that you have to require that. Sorry, I can't help you. You have to go home and do it on your computer. No, you don't have to have that type of situation. And it also does not mean that the entire purchase process has to be done in one sitting or one session. If there are all different types of choices to be made, the actual benefit of the buy online is they can break it up into different steps and parts and pieces. You don't need to force them to do it all at once. All right, so hopefully I've kind of put some context around what it is when I talk about buying online, what it is we're including and what it is it doesn't need to include. So what are some of those keys that we get into now of what it really takes to be successful with online purchases? So the first is you've got to have that modern mobile-friendly site that really performs well. Second, you've got to be able on your site to create trust and emotional connection. Third, you've got to drive traffic to your site, and it's got to be effective with your digital marketing. You need to be able to provide real-time response and support. And then finally, last but not least, then you actually have to integrate those online transactions into the existing processes. Okay, so we're going to dive in a little deeper into each of these and show you a few thoughts and examples on each of them. So the first key, having that high performance website. What does that really mean? So again, the beginning is in that modern optimized design. If you're not mobile friendly, if you're actually not mobile optimized, which is different from mobile friendly, all right? Mobile friendly just means that you don't have to pinch and zoom on the phone, but mobile optimized means that you've really designed that site to work well on the phone. If you're like most of the builders that we talk to, your traffic is now 60+%, if not higher, mobile traffic over desktop. People are on the phone and looking, and you need to be able to work with them. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire buy online process is going to be done on the phone. They may go home and want the bigger screen to be able to zoom in better and see things more. That's fine. But from a typical standpoint, you've got to be mobile optimized and ready to go. You've got to have a data foundation behind the site. And what I'm talking about here is this idea that it's, in order to work towards this buy online, we've got to have the site that has data that's current, it's updated, and when you sell a home, it's got to be marked sold everywhere. You've got to make sure that your sales team, that the customers at home, everybody's seeing the same data. It's got to be in sync. And that means that you probably can't manage that from Excel spreadsheets. Okay, you're going to need some different types of systems in the background to make sure that this all works. All right, once a lot is sold or reserved, or it falls through and it needs to become available again, you want to make sure that that is always up to date and ready to go. It's got to be quick and easy to find what you're looking for on your site. You've got to have those search tools. You've got to have the maps. You've got to have the filters, all the things that help them find the right home in the right location quickly and easily. Again, this kind of modern, updated site. You've got to have the prominent lead captures to be able to pull them into the next process or next step in the process. All right, you've got to tell them what to do next as part of that. And of course, one of the key issues, and Google is really focusing a lot on this right now too, is page performance. It gets into your hosting configurations. How to optimize your image files is still the #1 thing that people do wrong that slow down pages, is unoptimized image file sizes. If you're looking for some tips on how to improve your page loading, your Google Analytics reports has, in the site speed section, has a page timings report you can take a look at to see how you're doing. Google also has a free tool called Page Speed Insights that is evolving with something called Core Web Vitals right now that will help you also see real-time averages of how, real-time averages, that didn't sound right, using averages of real user data over the last month will help you see how people are engaging with your site as far as how long it takes to load, how quickly they can interact with it, and information like that. So being able to have that site operate quickly is critical to today's web user staying engaged. So you get them to your site, you've got the great site. How do you create that trust and that connection to help them move forward? So of course, it's all about engaging them, right? We don't just show them pictures of the dirt. Okay, that's not what engages people. That's not what helps them dream. Okay, they need to see photorealistic renderings. They've got to have the video galleries, the interactive site plans and floor plans. You've got to give them those options to tour, and that can still be an in-person tour that gets scheduled. That can still be a virtual guided tour that's done over a video conference, like a FaceTime type of scenario with your salesperson. Lots of different ways that they can engage, but you've got to engage them. And then we need to also make sure that we can help them build and take that dream to the next step. Appreciate Outhouse sharing this floor plan that just helps people understand what they have available and how those tools can change and how the pricing changes as they select those different types of options, helping them be able to see. And there's lots of different ways you can help people understand their choices. And this is a great one because of the visual component. Again, the idea that they can design and dream with a furniture planner, being able to see if the room will really fit what they want. These are the kinds of things that help them get comfortable that what you have to offer is really going to work for them. It's what gets them engaged. And of course, you capture their information to be able to use this later in the process. Another key way to build that trust is through education on the process. Some builders do a great job with this. Some builders have nothing to offer as far as, we assume because we build homes every day that the buyer understands how to do it. But most people don't buy a home every day. And often the home they bought before isn't necessarily a new home. So this is a totally new experience for them. And helping train them and teach them and educate them on what it is that is involved in that process is critical to building that trust and making them comfortable with being ready to actually make the purchase right now. If you have lots of people coming to your sales offer with the same questions, maybe there's opportunities to improve that education. And then of course, from a trust standpoint, we can't ignore online reviews and all of the opportunities out there where people are looking for social proof of how well you do business. Are you going to take care of them? Again, I'm scared. This is a big purchase. If something goes wrong, Do I have support? Are they going to take care of me? Your reputation, Carol mentioned reputation management as one of the services of denim marketing, but your reputation is huge online. And if you're not paying attention to it, if you don't know what's going out there, you could be really damaging your trust. And some of the things that could impact there is people's comfort making the click on that buy online. All right, so you've got the trust, you've got the site foundation, we're building the trust, we've got the calls to action. Now we need to drive traffic. So as we look at the kinds of ways, there's lots of different ways to drive traffic. Just going to run through these kind of quick and give you high-level overviews. Of course, you could do individual presentations about each of these, but the first one to touch on is paid search advertising or paid search marketing. You will think of this as what used to be known as Google AdWords. Okay, the idea that you're paying for a place on the search engines. Microsoft Bing has a service as well. There's also paid search within the social media environment, which also talk about here in just a second. But in addition to paid search, you have the traditional organic search engine optimization. So this is where we're talking about optimizing keywords and link structures and code structure and content within your page, so that Google and the other search engines consider your page one to display when someone's searching on the keywords you care about, like new homes in your city, right? So you want that visibility. This takes some work and some effort, but the payoff can be huge once you get those high rankings. Social media, there's two parts to social media. There's kind of your messaging piece where you're creating your posts, and then there's the advertising piece where you're buying ads that show up in different places. One of the great opportunities with social media is what we call retargeting. And this is where people come to your site and we're able to tag them because of their browser. And now when they go on their normal social media, your ad can show up in places because they've been on your site, and you don't necessarily need to have targeted them in some other way. And it's a great way to stay in front of them. Retargeting also works just in search engines in general. But opportunities on social media for advertising and driving traffic back to your site. Geofence marketing is another great way to identify an audience based on their physical location. So places that they visit, we're able to then use that visit as a way to say, hey, they're qualified for the kind of message we want to send, so we can target our advertising to them. Lots to do with mobile devices here with geofencing, and of course got whole presentations on each of these that it could do, so won't get into in depth. Text and email. Text is growing dramatically as a way to stay in touch with contacts. This is of course part of your CRM process, as well as just making sure that you are able to remind folks, stay in front of them, be able to communicate, answer their questions ongoing, but again, pushing them back to your website. And you tie it all together with the analytics piece. This is the part where everybody wants to understand what's working, what's not, which campaigns drove the traffic. And so it's critical that you've got a nice reporting foundation and platform to use, so that you can make sure that what you're doing isn't just throwing money out the window, but it's actually driving traffic. The famous saying is, right, half the money I spent on advertising doesn't work or is wasted. The problem is I don't know which half it is. Well, it's analytics that help you figure out which half is working and which half is wasted, so that you quit wasting money. All right, so now we've got the traffic. They're on our website. Key number 4 is the real-time response and support. When we move from a lead generation activity to a buy online, we ratchet up the need for this real-time support to a whole nother level. Now, that said, even in lead generation, real-time response and support is going to differentiate you and going to help you capture more leads. In 2020, Denim Marketing, Melinda Brody and Company, and Blue Gypsy Inc. did a mystery shopping study. And if you guys haven't seen the results of this, I would encourage you to go take a look. If you search on online homebuyer mystery shopping for 2020, I'm pretty sure it'll pop up there, or we can get you a link. But one of the results that they got, which just astounded me, they shopped 50 builders, and a large number of them were in the top 200 builders. So these aren't just tiny little builders that don't have resources. All right, 42% of these builders had no online sales counselor role that they could see, and no one, and the follow-up showed it. okay? This is shocking to me because in today's world, you have to be ready to answer those questions. You have to be able to engage those leads and pull them into your sales discussion and pipeline. And even if you're going to have a buy now button on the website, you're still going to need to have an online sales counselor type of role to be able to help those people who get stuck, because they're going to have questions that you haven't considered. As good as you do with the website, there's going to be questions. This is a huge opportunity for improvement and a way to still differentiate yourself. But it's not going to be long where if you're the only one that doesn't have one, you're going to be the one missing out, and your competitors are going to be taking those sales from you. Real-time support, of course, can be helped with automation and tools, things like chatbots, but it's also really about making sure that you've got the personnel and the focus ready to go. You can't have your sales team that's busy talking on the phone or visiting with someone or giving a tour also supposed to be responding to emails and expect that it's going to get back in a timely manner. People don't wait one business day for an email and be happy about it anymore. Okay, you've got to get back to them fast, especially if they're about to click that buy button and they've got a question. All right, key number 5, integrating online transactions. And of course, this is where some people think we need to start, right? Well, ready to go. And I purposely put this one at the end because all of the other things we've talked about will benefit you regardless of whether you ever decide to integrate online transactions, because all of those things will help you better engage with your audience and with your users. But when we start to integrate these online transactions, we have to really think about, again, what does buy online mean to us? And then how do we make it easy and comfortable to do that? So in this case, we've got one example here of just a 3-step instructions, right? Select your home, submit your deposit, make an appointment, right? This is just more of a lot reservation type of scenario, okay? It's very clear what's gonna happen. What do I need to do? And there's a little bit more I can read about it, okay? We wanna make sure that we give them confidence all the way, that we give those testimonials in front, all the kinds of things that will help them feel good that, you know what, it's gonna work, and if it doesn't, what do I have as my backup in case things go wrong? All right, but again, deciding where in your process you want to insert these transactions. And a transaction, when I use the word transaction, it doesn't necessarily mean there has to be a payment, all right, but rather it's a point where the customer is completing a step or doing something in that process. So it could be selecting options. That can be considered a transaction, even if there's not a payment associated with that specifically at that point. But it's part about moving them through the buyer's journey by using the website to help them complete those steps. And, you know, of course, buy online is all about that invitation, okay? And that buy now creates some urgency, it creates some opportunity. And you know what? They can do it at 2 in the morning when they can't sleep at night because they can't decide which house they want. And you're not going to take their phone call until business hours the next day. Okay, so the great advantage, your website is open 24/7, ready to work with them. So as you consider that whole integrated system, a lot of the different places where we start to have the website connect to our other systems, right? We've of course got the website and hosting, but now we get into talking to the CRM, we get into mortgage applications, payment processing, moving money between escrow. We've got digital signatures that can be integrated, warranty services, and everybody's going, oh gosh, Greg, it's too much, I can't take it. All right, I get it. There's a lot here. So the real kind of final question that I have for you today to ponder is, what's next? Where do we go from here? All right, we've got these 5 key steps. We've got those opportunities to pick and choose. And really, I kind of put them in that order on purpose, right? Start with the foundation, engage with the emotional connection, drive the traffic. All of those things, honestly, aren't really part of buying online. It's just part about selling homes and capturing leads. It's when we get into those real-time support, improving that, and then getting into the transaction integration. But just pick the one that you're not doing today. If your website's too slow, too ugly, not mobile optimized, that's where we start. Don't put a buy now button on a bad website. It's not going to do you any good. And as you build that foundation, you can work towards that. And so with that, I just want to say thank you for listening and putting up with it. And now if you see the question box there on the panel, please drop some questions in so that I get some questions that aren't hard ones, because Kevin's going to go after me good. I can feel it coming.
So I'm going to start it off with a personal one because it's a major pet peeve of mine. I see home builders all the time that fall into this trap. Just because a high school kid that understands how to build a basic website on WordPress is cheaper than hiring a proper company doesn't mean you need to do it. Just because any monkey can put an image or a series of images on your website does not mean that they are qualified to optimize the functionality of your website. Partner with a company that cannot just build you a website to market your homes, because that's really all that most builders, I'd say but 90% of builders have, and that's a rectal extraction. But 90% of builders have these marketing websites, but they don't have a website that's built to optimize the selling process or to integrate that selling process. So I'm going to come to you, Greg, with my first question. And the first question is with these real basic websites, how can a builder properly integrate the different systems they have? Yes, you can add just a quick little deposit button. I'm sure that's a simple process. I don't know, I don't build websites. But if you want to connect your ERP and your site plans so they can push and pull, and all those mechanisms need to be in place. Basically my question just got muddled by myself, but how does a builder, where do they start to try to integrate some of these systems onto their website?
So, and Kevin, you called out WordPress as a specific kind of platform, and that is exactly one of the challenges that you run into with a WordPress type platform. You can make a nice site with WordPress. You can do a lot of great information sharing, even lead capture. WordPress starts to get more challenging when you start dealing with data integrations. It's not impossible. You can write that code, but it's not really designed for that out of the box. So people who aren't ready to get deep into code are going to struggle with connecting some of those things to a WordPress type of site. I think, again, I want to make sure the message is that this is not overwhelming. You've probably got a lot of these building blocks already in place. If you're again, the fact that you are interested in digital marketing at the level that you would spend time with us today tells me that you're already working on a lot of these things. And so the idea that you can be able to add to that kind of one piece at a time is really where I want people to be comfortable going. Did that answer the question, Kevin, or did I get sidetracked?
It did. Our next question is coming to us from Bill, and Bill is coming to us with, it's a little bit long, but bear with me here. 72% of new construction is sold with the help of a realtor, which is true. But yet builders spend most of their time, money, and effort trying to reach consumers directly, whereas it takes more than 100 consumer leads to sell one home, which those numbers are actually a little different now. And when you sell a home with the help of an agent, a builder has the opportunity to sell more homes versus just trying to market that process. Anyway, the question is why are you not advocating builders to spend more marketing dollars to embrace agents versus helping them sell homes online?
So I'm not in any way, shape, or form commenting on your realtor program and outreach. Okay, my goal today was simply to talk about how you can make the website easier for people to make that purchase. Even if someone comes with an agent guiding them through that process, there's still an awful lot of information that has to happen in that home purchase process. Again, it's going to vary a little bit if it's a spec or inventory home that's ready to move in and there's no choices that are need to be made versus the one that's a to be built on a new community that's still dirt and there's all the different choices and options to go into that. It's all about using the website to facilitate the transactions and to allow people to go back and forth between the office with the sales agent and home and be able to see that whole process. I mean, do you remember the days, Kevin, where you bought something online, like from a Best Buy or something, and you could not return it to the store? You had to like mail it. You don't remember those times?
You literally just asked the one guy on the planet that still only shops local.
Okay, all right, sorry. Anyone else out there remember the time where because they weren't integrated, right? They were it was almost like two different companies. The website and the storefront, they were two totally separate companies. And if you bought from one, you couldn't buy from the other. Now you can buy on the website, pick it up in the store. You can buy on the website, you can return it to the store. You know, all these, it's integrated. And where we're going is, as builders, how do we kind of get that same type of a feel where this process is integrated? It's not a handoff where, well, you worked on the website, now you've checked this one button, and now you're over here and the website's done. How do we make that part of that back and forth, that flow, as we move them through that buyer's journey?
I hear you. Eric is coming to us with how do you tell a builder what they're asking you to do and or create is really a bad idea for their business? Because I'm sure that comes up.
How do I tell them it's a bad idea?
Yeah. Because sometimes they come to you and they say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could do X? And you're like, no, that's bad, and here's why.
Well, yeah, you try to say it nicely, but I think it's really, most people are not in the business of wasting money or doing things just because, you know, you're trying to run a for-profit company. And so at the end of the day, the heart of what we would say in that is if you're not sure, let's test it. Now, granted, testing can take money. It's hard to test two different websites without building two websites, right, and comparing them. So sometimes testing can be a little too expensive to do. But the idea is there's research out there, there's testing that you can do, and there's opportunities to just kind of say, hey, you know, this is what we're seeing, and let's survey customers, let's talk to them. There's lots of different ways to get data to drive decisions. So it's not just, well, I think you should do this, or I feel you should do that. If the only reason that we've got is just that gut feeling, there's probably something there. We need to look for some data to help drive those decisions. It's always going to be imperfect. You never have all the data you want. You know, you're going to have to extrapolate a little bit. But the other mistake along those lines that I see people making is they assume that their feelings are what all their customers think. Well, I would never buy something that way, or I would want it to be this way. And that's true. And there will be a segment of your buyer population that will probably match you, but there's others that won't. And so you want to make sure that you're not letting that bias cloud those decisions.
So if a builder wants to get started, you got this builder with an unsophisticated website, how complicated is it to add a payment button or to add a pay here button? How hard is it?
So the technology of adding an actual payment button is not complicated. We've been taking credit card payments on websites since '95, right? With Amazon and even before that. So this is technology that's been around. It's well done. The question is not so much about putting the button on the website. The question is about the business process that goes along with that button. All right, where's that money going to go? Who takes care of that money? What does that money mean when someone walks in and says, hey, I paid $500 deposit on the website yesterday, and they walk in the sales center and nobody knows where it is, right? I mean, there's a process in the business that goes behind all of that. And that's the hard part, if I can do that in air quotes. Can I do air quotes? Air quotes.
You can do air quotes.
Because that's where you can't just hire the web company. They can't do that part for you. Right? That you have to create that system, that process, that piece in the business. And whether they're walking in with a check in their hand or whether they're making the payment on the website, it's that process that it all connects to that is the key to success.
So do builders need to be worried about consumer privacy rules when they're taking payments and stuff? I mean, I assume that all that's been buttoned up with all the different security systems that are out there, correct?
Yeah, when you start taking payments on a website, there are some additional things that come into play. The biggest one is something called PCI compliance, which is driven by the credit card industry. And that is all about how you protect the credit card information that's being used. Now, there's solutions out there for it, but you want to make sure that as an organization, you understand the implications of that. The privacy laws regarding personal information are going to apply even if you just have a contact us form. You know, so California is kind of leading the way with some of the newer laws in the US. Europe's had GDPR for a little while now, which talks about, privacy and the ability for people to control their personal information. It is likely that there will be more privacy regulations coming. Lots of things like that start in California and then spread across, and then you get enough states with slight nuances that finally the federal government has to create a blanket law that kind of standardizes things so that we don't have to deal with every state different. So definitely some things to pay attention to there, and understand that there's implications as you start to deal with personal information, for sure.
So there's a question, I don't quite know if I'm understanding it, but if it is, I think I already have the answer to it. But Megan wants to know, what are the different types of OSCs? And I assume that I'm making the assumption that she's asking, when you mention different types of OSCs, are you talking about like you have filtering online sales counselors? You have more of a expediting OSC? What, could you better define that?
I think that's going to be up to however you want to define your process. Okay, but the idea being that you need to have somebody paying attention to the questions and the contacts that are happening on the website, so that you're fast. You've got to be fast, and that may mean, again, we're seeing builders that used to use OSC as a singular, and now it's a team, right? It used to be the one OSC at the company, right? And now you can't do that because the volume's too high, or you need to specialize in certain areas or whatever. And so I think it's really about this idea, whatever you want to call them, you don't have to call them an OSC, but somebody's got to be there to be able to help guide those buyers when they get stuck, because they need quick answers or they're going to go away and you're going to lose them.
Yeah, and to further clarify, the auto industry, who our online sales counselors kind of emulate, they have a low-lying level, which is more of like a Johnny on the spot. Answer as quickly as humanly possible, get the basic information there, and then it expedites or elevates to that next level contact, which would be able to answer more specific questions, to really drill down some data.
Well, Kevin, I think we're getting close on our time here. So we got one more.
Yeah, I've got two more. One more about OSCs. Do you feel contact center is needed for an online sales team is best?
I'm not sure I'm in a position to declare one better than the other. I think it's really going to depend on your situation. One of the challenges that some of the centers can have is they may not specialize in the specific communities enough. But it's going to depend on the variety in your product lines, the geographies. Tell me about the such and such schools in this community. If somebody doesn't know it well enough to be able to answer that kind of a question, then
not even in that municipality. Yeah. All right, last but not least, if a home builder is on here today and they're like, hey man, where can I get started? What is the one area that you would start with that a home builder can hit the ground running with?
I would say it's really that look at your website and really stepping back and saying, do we engage? Do we perform? I mean, run one of the speed tests that I mentioned, right? And just see if you're fast enough. Because at this point, if you don't have that foundational website, and honestly, that's where I see most builders still lacking. It's that the foundational website is lacking for many, many builders to be even, it's not even time to talk about some of this until you've got that foundation built and sturdy.
Well, Greg, thank you. If any of the attendees have any questions or have any kind of scenarios where they'd want to discuss implementation of automating some of these processes or connecting some online sales practices to their existing website, contact Greg. That's greg@bluetangerine.com, greg@bluetangerine.com.
Yeah, happy to talk with anybody anytime about this. Can talk too long about it, so it's good stuff. So thanks everybody for paying attention and listening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.